Hello, we're back for another of Via Satellite's Thursday morning conversations, and this time we're going all the way to Luxembourg, not a million miles away from where I'm at, but still a fair distance. And we're talking to Peter Platzer, the CEO of Spire Global. So, Peter, hello, good afternoon, and how are things there right now?
It's wonderful to be here. Thank you for asking. And you can see here in the background, the sun is shining. Summer has indeed arrived. We have been really having a very, very good summer and late spring actually here in Luxembourg. At times, I have to admit, it was actually a little bit too hot for me. I like it when it's a little bit cooler, but it's wonderful to be out when the sun is shining and the weather is nice. Rather than what some people think that Luxembourg is bad weather, I can personally confirm it has excellent weather.
Well, it's good to hear. Obviously Luxembourg is a very small country. What's sort of life been like there under lockdown, and where is it at now?
So I would say that Luxembourg has done one of the best jobs that we have seen, following the news across the world and looking at our office in different countries. It has been very, very organized from day one. It made very decisive actions very quickly. As a logistics hub in Europe, there was never any shortage of anything, right? From neither hospital beds, no toilet paper, no hand sanitizer, no apples, no anything. So that has been very, very comforting. Now that the lockdown has been lifted, we have seen, not surprisingly, that numbers started to go up a little bit. One thing that Luxembourg does, which is a little bit different to some of the other places, it just has an enormous testing program. Yeah. They test thousands and thousands of people every single day, which equates to the country is only 600,000 people, right? So when we test 5,000-6,000 people, that's a full percentage point of the population being tested in a single day. So we have seen numbers popping up. I think people wanted to go out, especially the young people. They're doing some parties, but overall, it still feels, it's just well organized. It has been a better experience than some of my colleagues and family members and friends had, for example, in some places in the US, I have to say.
Okay. One of the fun things of these conversations, we've been asking what people have been watching, any movie recommendations, dramas, obviously more time at home, less sort of travel. So in terms of your household, any movies that you've really enjoyed recently, any dramas, any TV?
So I have to admit that I've rewatched some old staples. I recently rewatched the Bourne Identity series. So going into something which is clearly an escapist movie, I would say. There was a movie that we really enjoyed, and I can't think of the name right now. It's just something like All About Time or something like that, and it tells this wonderful story of a quirky a British family where the man in the family have the ability, when they walk into a broom closet and close it and close their eyes, they can go back in time.
Okay.
And it tells like this story of how the protagonist of the movie grows up and fumbles through puberty, and how he approaches a girl and it didn't go so well, so he goes into the broom closet and he tries it again. And so it has a lot of comical elements to it, but it also tells about the wonders of being in the moment. Because he there's a scene where he goes through like a day and he doesn't really enjoy it. He actually wins in court. He is a barrister, and he goes to court, and then he kind of like relives the day again, and he lives it full and with joy and with pleasure, and he embraces every single moment. And the difference in life experience of the very same act is just so visceral and palpable that me and my wife, we really enjoyed watching that movie, and I can highly recommend it. Just if I were to, All About Time or something like that is roughly around the name.
Yeah, I think I know the movie that you're talking about. I need to double check the name of it, but I'm fairly sure I've seen that movie on Netflix actually. I think it, and I may be wrong here, but I think it was the person that did it or directed it was the same one that did Love Actually.
Mm.
If I've got that correct, if that's, I think.
Yeah, I think that's possible. I mean, it would sound highly plausible, I would say.
So yeah, and so which is your favorite out of the Bourne? I guess there's four Bourne movies. Which of the four is the one you like the most?
Um, I mean, I like the first one because it is like the one that kicked it off.
Yeah,
Um, I felt like the second one is a bit more on a flat side. There is the scene in I think in Lebanon or something like that. The fight scene inside the houses with him, where he protects the girl. That is one of my favorite fight scenes, where they improvise, where both the kind of like two action stars, they improvise using towels and books and all sorts of other things and pens, and they become deadly weapons. And I think that's just like it's just extremely impressively choreographed and acted upon. The fourth one, I think, is powerful in the scene where I forgot the name of the star, where he shares that I have further to fall than most, where he shows the video where he was recruited, and where he plays a mentally somewhat challenged individual, where the medicine that they give him now make him just a very, very bright and high-powered individual. And that moment of personal fear of like, if I were to lose this, I have further to fall than most. I think we just made the story very, very personal and very, very interesting.
yeah, it's funny. We've just started watching those movies with my daughter, so we're two out of four at the moment, and really enjoying them. I think we'll be watching another one this weekend. We started by watching the Daniel Craig James Bond movies. So we went through Casino Royale and Skyfall, Quantum of Solace.
Quantum of Solace, yes.
Yeah, and what was the final one? That it escapes me. The last one, anyway. We watched all four, and then we've decided to watch the Bourne movies after that. So, always nice locations, glam locations, bit of escapism, and which I think we all need a little bit of at the moment. Are you a music fan at all? Favorite artists? Anything tunes you particularly like to listen to?
I mean, I'm probably a little bit boring there. I'm very Austrian in that sense. I love classical music, so I have on my phone, I have this If This Then That app. So when I come home, my Sonos starts playing, and it's pretty clever actually, because when I come home from work and I park the car, the Sonos starts playing because it has like this vicinity GPS sensor, and so my family knows, oh, Peter is coming home. Or if I try to walk by and sneak into the park to have an ice cream without coming home, then they know that I'm coming home, and they give me a call. They're like, "Why are you not coming home? What's going on here?" Right? So it's very funny. But it goes to a Vivaldi radio station. I love this kind of Baroque music, Vivaldi, Alessandro, Handel, Bach. This kind of period. I was trained in Austria as a classical tenor.
Okay.
So I spent. I mean, that's kind of like was my major form of making money while a student at university. I was singing in the professional choirs of Austria, and traveling with them. It gave me both access to travel as well as a little bit of pocket money, and that I think it's that love for classical music has never left me. I think the other type of music is classic, 80s, 90s dance music. And my daughter, who is, all but, 5.5 years old, has picked up on that, and she loves dance music. And so she now, plays everything from dance to Shakira to everything else, and does her dance routine there. So this is kind of like the two types of music that you might hear in our household.
Very interesting. I mean, I have to ask, give me a couple of dance tunes that you really like, 90s, dance pop tunes that
I have no idea of names. I literally, I have zero recognition. My wife has better recognition for dance moves because when she was in her 20s in New York, she would just go out and to raves and this kind of music. I just love the music, but I have no recognition of names. It's the opposite when we hear classical music. I have a bit of a better recognition of, is this a Mozart, or is it a Haydn, or is it a Beethoven, or is it an Albione? But I'm completely useless when it comes to names of dance.
Do you still sing now, or is that something? You're not doing at the moment?
Unfortunately, not. Right. So the one thing about singing is that you have to be able to reliably show up to rehearsals and performances. And before the lockdown, for the last 5, 6, 7 years, I've been on a plane. I think we calculated it once. It was something like every 3.4 days.
Oh, wow.
Right. So I have like something like 100 to 150 flights a year. And that means that I'm just not available reliably to be at rehearsals. And so I have not been singing for almost a decade. When I was in New York, I was singing in New York. I was singing in Singapore, and I was singing in Vienna. But I have not been doing it since I went back to grad school, and since then we started the company Spire.
And I mean, it brings up a good point. I mean, one of the topics that we talk about a lot is someone like yourself and other people that we've spoken to have traveled a lot or on planes a lot, and all of a sudden that has changed completely for months. I mean, for a company like Spire that is, I think a really good news story in our industry, how difficult has it been for you to sort of not only take care of, in helping welfare of your employees and your staff, but also managing the company to sort of, on the growth curve that it has been on? And talk to me about the changes in what you've been doing personally in order to make sure Spire will continue to, be a good news story going forward.
And that's like a typical reporter thing you did there. You basically threw like 15 questions in one sentence and make me sure that I don't forget any of them.
That's pretty good. I usually do more.
So I think there's lots of benefits, I would say. Like being that much at home has been phenomenal. We welcomed a new child into our family last summer. Augusta, she's now 1 year old, and so I have been home, and I saw her crawl. I saw her first steps, right? I saw her learn my name, right? So and those all have been just really, really fantastic experiences. I also benefited from not having to spend all this wasted time from intercontinental travel, right? I mean, it's a lot of time that you spend, packing, going to the airport, waiting on the airport, getting on the plane, getting off the plane. I mean, there's an enormous amount of time that is wasted. And then you have, the jet lag, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours of jet lag every single year that you drag your body through, which, sucks energy from you to do other things. And so all of that suddenly was gone. So that was just like fantastic, right? As a company, because we have 6 offices across the world already, and so we are already spread across the full 24 hours of the world, we have a lot of remote interaction as part of our way of doing business by design. And so the transition from having a lot to having almost exclusive remote was not as massive for us as for some other companies. And so for the first, I would say like few weeks, few months, it has been reasonably seamless. I think for some people, it became, very difficult to find the right balance, especially early on, because there was nothing else to do. So people ended up working, all the time, right? And then some form of burnout set out. So we spent, especially in the last, few weeks, a month and a half or two, a lot of time talking about you gotta have to take breaks. You gotta have to watch your burnout level. You gotta have to watch your mental health. You gotta have to watch all of that, because we kind of like need you. Like, you can't burn out. You are incredibly important, and so you really have to manage that. And so we spent an increasing amount of time talking about that. Overall, I would say that the current situation has given us an opportunity to showcase the resilience of the business, right? Because we are diversified across regions, across industries, and across customer types.
Yeah.
And they all are impacted in different ways. And so some industries have been more affected than others, right? Some customer types have been negatively impacted, and some customer types have been positively impacted. So for us as a business, the way we have set up the company, we always, I come from quantitative investment management, where diversification is kind of like the only free way to make money or reduce your risk. And so we've set up the company in a similar fashion. And so for us, our growth trajectory actually has not been impacted by the COVID situation so far. The business has delivered of how it was designed from its diversified perspective.
Do you think when this is over? I mean, you talked about traveling, every 3 to 4 days. You mentioned that your daughter came along last year, and you're able to share a lot of those key milestone moments. Do you think even when this is over that you are going to sort of travel less now, that this has given you a different perspective, or do you still see that when this period is over that you'll be going back to traveling the same as what you did before?
I honestly don't know, Mark, right? Because there is something lost, right? It is not as obvious, and it is seeping, and that is the personal connection. As much as we try and we get used to having a connection with people over video, especially with people that we do know, it is never the same experience as being in the same room with someone. It is literally the difference between 2D and 3D, right? And so not being able to see people, like the majority reason for me to travel was to see people in person, the people inside the company, and then friends and partners and investors and customers at the location. And I do think that there is a little bit of connectivity, a little bit of engagement lost every single day that you do not connect with a person in 3D in the same room. Whether maybe some trips that I didn't really need to take, that someone else could have taken, or that they were not entirely necessary, sure. At the same token, there are so many random people and random connections that are made on a trip that were non-scheduled and non-predictable, that had very, very large positive impacts 2, 3, 4 years down the line, that it's really, really hard to know which trips should you take and which trips should you not take. So no. I don't know.
It's a good point. Let's talk a little bit about some of the growth markets for Spire. I mean, I always think one of the big topics for the satellite industry is looking for new verticals. When we talk, a lot of times about traditional verticals, whether it's government, maritime, and in-flight connectivity, even broadcast with some of the other operators. But obviously, one of the big things we're seeing is targeting new types of companies, new types of businesses that traditionally may have not used satellite services. So could you give us some, maybe some thoughts and ideas on new verticals, new types of business that Spire may be selling to in the near future?
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about that. So when we started the company, my BCG and business school training forced us to think very, very hard about what is the sustainable competitive advantage of this exciting new technology that everyone talks about, nanosatellites, those small wine bottle-sized satellites. Uh, if we take away all of the excitement and the sexiness of it, what is actually that they can provide that is not be provided by existing technologies, right? So when we started the company, we had three firm guiding principles. Number one, this is a data and analytics company about data which can only be gathered from space. Right, so if the data could be acquired in any other way, we would not going to be interested in. Number two, we said the data quality, the data value, the data resolution has to increase not by the size of the sensor, but by the number of sensors you deploy. And then the third one was, the sensor and the satellite have to be software defined. They have to be reconfigurable, right? And so I think if we focus on that second one for a second here, I think a phenomenal application of that technology, where the value is driven by the number of sensors deployed, is on helping humanity mitigate the impact of climate change, which exerts itself on our lives through the weather. And I personally believe that that mitigating and managing that is the generational challenge that we have. It is going worse every single year, and it will do so for a number of years and decades. And finding tools to tame the unpredictability of weather, I think is a phenomenal application of space, right? Because you need to capture all of Earth's atmosphere in 3D. It is a classic case for you need lots and loads of sensors. And a large sensor is just not going to allow you to capture information with the temporal resolution that you want. So I think that the potential for large constellation of weather data capturing satellites is still in its infancy. I don't know if you saw, but the European Center for Medium Range Weather Forecasting, the best center in the world, and UK Met Office and others, they published reports that because of the loss of aircraft travel, their forecasts were getting less accurate. And so given that our data is very well understood and we have loads of it, we offered it to them, free of charge, of course, in the spirit of COVID collaboration, to use to make better weather forecasts as they lack this data. And, both of them and some others reacted very positively and very keen and very thankful. And they are using our data, and it has had a material impact on their forecast accuracy during this whole COVID crisis. But I think that's just the beginning of what can be done to help those institutions and help companies directly really get substantially more accurate, substantially further out forecasts, and allow them to mitigate and reduce the operational risk that they have from the unpredictability of weather, which is driven by climate change. So I think that's just a large opportunity.
And what about sort of new verticals? I mean, financial services, insurance. I mean, we've talked agriculture sometimes. Name me a couple of verticals where you think that maybe traditionally have not bought satellite services full stop, where you think could potentially buy services from Spire.
So some of the industries that are actually very impacted by the phenomenon we just talked about, I don't think have been traditionally large buyers of satellite data. So construction industry, for example, is one where if you misjudge the weather you can have millions and tens of millions of dollars of costs. Like at a classic site, you have a large crane. If the crane can't operate because the wind is too high, the whole site is dead, right? A whole site being dead is like millions of dollars of costs, right? Unless you plan it in advance, and then okay, 2 days from now in the afternoon, I can't use the crane, and I just planned for it, right? If you pour a foundation and the weather is too cold or the weather is too rainy, you might have to rip the whole thing out, right? So the variance on the construction industry is very, very high because of inaccurately forecasted weather events, and I don't think that they have traditionally done that. Similarly, mining industry has a pretty big variance. And some of the technologies that they use in those remote places of the world where they do mining are literally a guy with a stopwatch and a pencil that sits there and says, like, I see a lightning, I press the stopwatch. When do I hear the thunder? I press the stopwatch, I write down the number. If the number goes below 2, then we have to close down the site, right? That's the level of technology that sometimes is available there. And I think we can do substantially better for that regard. So I do think that there are industries that traditionally have not actually had the benefit because the data actually or the capabilities didn't exist. But I think we're moving into a world where capabilities do exist to have a material impact on the bottom line of those companies.
Excellent. Well, I think I will wrap it up. I will end on a slightly jokey question. One of the stars of the video has been Peter's cat behind, who I've just tell me the name of the cat, and you've got behind you there.
So I have two cats. They are Aussie cats, and they are named Wolfel and Nanel. And the background to those names are that Wolfel is, of course, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. And Nanel, his sister, is Nanel Mozart, which is less well known, but she was an extremely accomplished musician and composer in her own right. You actually now see both cats up there. The one on the top, of course, is the boss. Her name is Nanel. And the one below is Wolfie, who is her brother. So they represent Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart and her almost equally accomplished sister, Nanel.
Well, what a way to end the conversation. I think that we'll find it hard to top that. Peter, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you today. I also just want to wish you, your family, and also your colleagues at Spire, safe health and being safe over this period. It's a company that is we have a lot of respect for, and I think it's going to do some great things. So we wish you and the company all the best for the future, and we look forward to hopefully meeting you in person again very soon.
Thank you very much for being here, and what a wonderful idea to have these conversations, and I do look forward to seeing you in 3D and not just in 2D.
Be a pleasure.